Hey, Dr. T.
Yeah, what's up?
All right, so we all know that school is back in full swing. I have heard a lot of our parents talking about concerns for their kiddos with ADHD, SPD, anxiety, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
What do you recommend for them?
Yeah, it's usually hard for everybody this time of year, and even just kids that don't have challenges, but especially those that do.
Mm-hmm.
This is the kind of year that most time parents are not really looking forward to.
Mm-hmm.
It's one to where they've oftentimes talked to us about, they've done everything, the counseling, the behavior modification, the charting, the medications, and some work a little bit, some don't work at all. And they can get very frustrated, and also to kind of really look to this time of year, not really look forward to this time of year, because many times it's just like not looking forward to the calls from the teachers, the arguments and meltdowns over doing homework, just the overload that happens, and many times these kiddos are just like in an environment, a learning environment. It's not built for them, but it's one they just kind of got to traverse through, and things just don't work. So it can be very frustrating for those that have done everything to those that are just starting the process. It's a confusing road to not know what else they can do or what's the next step to do. And many times, this has been, providers that have been, diagnosing this stuff for years, and nothing's changed, 20 plus years, and it's, still nothing's changed as far as how they approach it. And really there's a missing link within the nervous system that's really being overlooked in most cases.
Okay, so what is that missing link that's always overlooked?
Well, when you kind of think back to anything, it goes back to, you got to trace it back and always ask why. That's the kind of kid I always was. Why? And when you do that, it goes back to the nervous system, and whether you've been told that it's, it's a chemical imbalance, it's a brain imbalance, but why, right? Not just like it is, and then this is how we're going to treat that, but why is it happening in the first place? And many times this nervous system overlook is really simply the nervous system being in the cascade of a sympathetic dominant state, to where it's more ADHD and is really, that's all they use now, right? It used to be like ADD and ADHD, but now it's just ADHD across the board. But it's really broken down into a couple different formats. But with that, this nervous system is really in more of that protective state. And if you've ever been under stress, it's hard to focus, it's hard to learn, because your brain needs to be in that prefrontal cortex to learn to focus, to have ease, to have the sensory system work appropriately. Because if it's in a sympathetic state, our senses heighten, right? And that's where sensory processing just becomes louder. That's where anxiety becomes more. That's where lack of focus becomes harder, because we're more in that running from a lion state. And so that's where a lot of this missing link comes from, and where and why their systems may get into that state. A lot of times started many years ago, if not even pre-birth. Like maternal stress is a big one, because maternal cortisol passes placenta, can affect the brain and nervous system development, birth process in of itself, forceps, vacuum, Pitocin, C-sections, all can kind of start this process, and it could have been showing up even early on. That's just been overlooked and kind of grew into where it's at now.
Definitely seems like structure is needed for situations like this, especially during the school year. So if we're breaking things down, sleep is always a big one. How important is that for kiddos like this?
There's 4 major ones,
right?
Number 1 is sleep. Another one is just day-to-day structure. Another is movement, exercise, activity, and another is gaining a hold of this nervous system. So you asked about sleep. Sleep is huge, right? Like quality of sleep. Not even so much, because there can be kids that like fall asleep, but they're waking up exhausted. There's 3 different kinds of sleep. One, it's hard to unwind and go to sleep. Another one is they go to sleep, but then they wake up multiple times. Or the third, which is they fall asleep, they stay asleep, but they wake up exhausted and not getting that deep enough quality of sleep, and that occurs because that nervous system is in more of that protective state. And so this is where the brain at night, if it's not getting to that recuperative state, it's not really consolidating the things it learned throughout the day. This is where it's able to, sleep is where we process our emotions, and this is where we help get restoration from the demands of the day before. And if they're not catching up from the day before, they're behind, and then they have the day after building that. It's just a cycle that can kind of flow there.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You were talking about environmental structure, so at-home structure.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah, nobody likes change, right? The human body doesn't like change, and that's where if it knows what's going to come next, it's easier for it. It just flows easier, and that's where structure can come in. Developing systems, whether it be coming home from school, having a snack, and then doing homework, or whatever that is. That it's like keeping routine, a pre-bedtime routine. It's keeping that structure. Trying to develop that, which seems simple on the outside, but it's worthwhile developing it because it can create so much more ease throughout the day. Making sure there's designated workspaces, things are in appropriate places, it's a calm environment, whether it be playing music or whatever, right? Like it's developing the system,
right?
Because once a system is developed, you just play it out, right? And then you repeat it, right? It's consistency, and that's where it builds into that. So then they know what to expect next. It just is what it is, and they can flow to the next, because oftentimes with a lot of stressed out anybody, whether it be kids or adults, transitions or changes in it day to day are tough.
Yeah.
It's not easy because it's so rigid. A stress system is rigid, a relaxed system is adaptable.
Okay, cool. Movement is definitely an important aspect for all lifestyles.
Yes.
How can exercise help kiddos who may be a little bit more hyperactive or have a hard time winding down after school?
It really helps a lot. And there's a book, Dr. John, I have it written down here, Bradley. It's called Spark. That book gets into and shows how exercise can be, if not the same, but better effectiveness than any of the medications that are prescribed for ADHD.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this is where, again, like those sorts of things many times are stimulants, right? Stimulate the body. It's a chemical way of producing exercise, right? In a way that helps work through that. And it just charges the nervous system. The body, when we move, we send into the nervous system what it's looking for. It's called proprioception. It's calming to the nervous system. It's like food for the nervous. It's like good food for the nervous system. So when we have that movement, it feeds the brain. It helps it get more ease. Helps it get more balance. It's also to energy exertion, right? Which then kind of lowers the fuel tank. So then it's in more of a depleted state where then it can get rest, right? Oftentimes, if it's not expended enough, we've got still fuel in the tank, and then it's harder to go to sleep. It's harder to do the stuff, right? And that's harder to just do things there. So that's where exercise can feed the cognitive function. It increases blood flow, stimulates the brain, all things that can really help with calming the sensory system, help increase learning, focus, sleep, all things that help.
Where do offices like us come into play, neurologically based chiropractors?
So one is a real important thing is, which I love, is our scans, the insight scan that we do, because it really gives us an objective understanding, right, how is that nervous system doing? It gives us one locality of where these stress patterns occur and the intensity that they're occurring, which then also helps us individually help the individual as far as with care planning them, understanding them, and what it may take to help get that nervous system out of that sympathetic state, out of that stress state, and help it unlock that and restore more of the calm and balanced state, to where then once you establish more of that, then the system's more adaptive. It's able to access more of that prefrontal cortex. It's able to learn better, help to have that sensory system better. It's all just really everything health-wise and function optimally wise comes from what's called the parasympathetic, which is a rest and digest, growth and development state, not the protect and fight flight state.
Okay, that all makes sense. Thanks for the info.
Of course.